Jungkook changed the lyrics of the song in the middle of the stage, saying "you" while staring at Jimin. "I was never yours, but God, I wish I had been." Jungkook's voice cracked through the stadium speakers, raw and trembling. The music behind him stuttered, the band faltered. For a moment, time stood still under the suffocating lights of Seoul Olympic Stadium. The crowd didn't know it yet, but history had just been rewritten. This wasn't how the song was supposed to go. Everyone, from the backstage crew to the millions watching live, knew the original lyrics. Yet here he was, standing on stage in front of 65,000 people, breaking script with a single word. "You." His eyes, dark and glassy, were locked on Jimin. Jimin didn't move, didn't blink. He just stared, frozen, a storm behind his practiced calm. Jungkook's breath trembled in the mic, the heat of the spotlight bathing his sweat-slicked skin. The audience screamed, thinking it was just an act. But his voice had that dangerous edge, the kind that only those who truly knew him would recognize. They had rehearsed this stage a dozen times. Every note, every beat, every camera cue. But this wasn't part of the show. Jungkook stepped forward, his fingers curling tightly around the mic. Jimin's heart pounded like a war drum in his chest, but he forced a half-smile, his idol persona clinging like a mask made of glass, cracking with every second. Backstage, the director swore into his headset. The LED monitors flickered. The control room scrambled. Taehyung cursed under his breath, eyes darting between monitors. Namjoon's hand hovered near his earpiece, silently debating whether to cut the feed. They all knew. Only Jimin didn't look away. Because he knew too. The moment Jungkook's voice dropped to a whisper, dragging the word "you" like a knife across an old wound, the past flooded Jimin's mind, splintered memories crashing through the dam he'd built over the years. The rehearsal rooms, the shared silences, that night in Tokyo, the door that never closed and the one that never opened again. Jungkook's eyes glistened with something unspoken. Regret, rage, desperation. Or love. The crowd was still cheering, but to them, it was all part of the performance. Only those on stage knew the truth. They were watching a man unravel in real time, note by note, verse by verse. It wasn't just a song anymore. It was a confession. And Jimin was the secret he'd kept buried beneath chart toppers and fan service. The one he sang around, never about, until now. Jungkook finished the verse, but the silence that followed was louder than the applause. He lowered the mic, breathing heavy, his chest rising and falling as if he'd just run a marathon. Sweat dripped from his temple, curling at the edge of his jaw. Jimin stepped forward. Not planned. No cue. The music hadn't resumed yet, but their world had. It had cracked open on stage for everyone to see. As Jimin reached him, the lights dimmed to an amber hue, casting long shadows on the stage floor. They stood just feet apart. The air between them was hot, charged, like before a thunderstorm. "I thought you'd forgotten," Jimin said, his voice low enough that only Jungkook could hear. Jungkook shook his head once, eyes never leaving Jimin's. "I tried." No choreography could script this. No encore could erase it. In the wings, the other members stood still, torn between intervention and reverence. Their story, once buried in silence and industry smoke, was now burning bright, alive in the glare of stage lights and camera flashes. And yet, the world didn't know it was real. Not yet. As the crowd chanted their names and begged for the next song, Jungkook turned his back to the audience for the first time in his career. Not in defiance, in surrender, in truth. He looked at Jimin, not as a bandmate, not as a friend, but as the only person who had ever known the real version of him, and still walked away. Until now. The music resumed, but the show was no longer the same. Neither were they. "You should have said something before," Jimin hissed, cornering Jungkook in the narrow hallway behind the stage, where the thunder of the audience faded into a low, pulsating hum, like a warning that hadn't reached them yet. "I just did," Jungkook shot back, sweat dripping down his temple, his voice raw from singing. but more from the tremor of emotions threatening to crack his composure. "That wasn't something," Jimin said, voice rising. "That was everything. You don't get to just drop that in front of the world and walk off like you didn't just set us both on fire." Jungkook stared at him, jaw clenched. His chest still heaved. "I didn't plan it, it just happened." Jimin took a step closer, fury radiating off him. "You looked at me, Jeon Jungkook, right at me. You didn't just change the lyrics, you made a statement." "I meant it," Jungkook whispered. The silence after that was like a blade being drawn. Jimin blinked, his breath caught in his throat. "You meant it, now, after all this time." "I've always meant it," Jungkook said, "even when I tried not to." "You have no idea what you've done." "I do." "No, you don't," Jimin snapped. "You've dragged me into a storm I fought so hard to keep buried. You just confessed to the world, and now everyone's going to pull us apart, tear it up, twist it, and feed it back to us through headlines and hashtags." Jungkook stepped forward. "So what? At least they'll know the truth. I'm done pretending." "You don't get to be done when I still have to survive this." A door slammed nearby. Taehyung's voice called from down the hallway, breathless and warning. "You two need to cool it. Cameras are everywhere. Dispatch is probably outside already." Neither of them moved. The air was electric, filled with everything unsaid, years of silence compressed into this narrow hallway. Jimin broke first. He turned away, palms pressed against the wall, shoulders trembling, not with fear but with exhaustion. "You should have told me before the stage. We could have figured this out. Quietly." "I couldn't be quiet anymore," Jungkook murmured, stepping beside him. "Not when it's you." Jimin looked at him, eyes wet but hard. "You think this is brave? It's not. It's reckless. It's selfish. And now we're both going to pay for it." "You're wrong," Jungkook said, softer. "It was the only honest thing I've done in years." Jimin laughed bitterly. "And what am I supposed to do with that honesty? Carry it like a bomb?" "You're supposed to let it break the cage." A choked breath escaped Jimin's throat. "You don't know what the cage is made of, Jungkook. You think this is just about the fans, the company. It's not. It's our families. It's contracts. It's cameras on us when we sleep. It's the weight of millions of expectations and pretending until it becomes who you are." "And I'm done pretending," Jungkook said again, firmer now. "If that's the end of everything, fine. But I won't lie about you anymore." Jimin shook his head slowly. "You think this is romantic, but it's not. It's a war declaration." "I'm not afraid of war." "You should be." From down the hall, a loud knock echoed, security calling them to regroup. The encore was about to begin. Jimin straightened, wiping under his eyes. He turned to Jungkook, face unreadable now, professional, polished. "From this moment forward," he said with cold precision, "you follow my lead. No more surprises, no more confessions, not on stage, not in front of them." "And off stage?" Jungkook asked. Jimin didn't answer. He just walked away. Back on stage, the lights dimmed again. The crowd was a wave of glowing light sticks, still chanting their names like a prayer, oblivious to the emotional earthquake unfolding just behind the curtain. Jungkook stood in the shadows, staring at Jimin's back as he took his position. The music started, a soft ballad they'd sung hundreds of times before, but this time it tasted different, bitter, sharp, real. Jimin's voice was steady, heartbreakingly perfect, not a single crack. But Jungkook saw it. The way his fingers curled slightly at the mic, the way his left foot tapped, almost imperceptibly, the way he avoided eye contact, even when the lyrics begged for it. They were singing about love. They were drowning in it. The final note rang out, and the stadium erupted in applause. Flashbulbs burst like lightning. The members gathered at center stage, bowed, smiled, masks up. But between Jungkook and Jimin, nothing. No touch. No glance. Only a silence that screamed louder than the crowd. And somewhere, in that chaos of confetti and cheers, Jungkook realized something terrifying. He hadn't set them free. He'd set them on fire. And Jimin was already walking through the flames alone. I don't care what he said on stage. Cut the cameras tighter next time. He's not the main story anymore. The group is, snarled Bang PD into the conference line, his voice echoing in the cold glass walls of HYBE's top-floor meeting room. We're not derailing the entire comeback for one damn moment of melodrama. Behind the tinted windows, Seoul glimmered with indifferent beauty. The city didn't know that within the sterile calm of this building, empires were being threatened, not by rivals, but by the feelings of two men who had once promised to keep everything off the record. Jimin sat motionless, flanked by legal advisors, his phone turned off untouched. Across from him, Jungkook leaned forward, elbows on the table, his hoodie damp from rain and nerves. He hadn't slept. Neither had Jimin. Their eyes met only once, and that was enough. You can't just erase what happened, Jungkook said, his voice low but simmering. This isn't a PR stunt, it was real. The room tensed. Someone from the legal team clicked their pen nervously. Bang PD turned to him with a sharp look. Then, maybe you should have considered that before you dragged Jimin into your impulsive performance. Jungkook's eyes flared. I didn't drag him, I looked at him, I sang to him, that's not a crime. You don't understand what you've set off, the head of public relations snapped. There are markets where this is already being pulled apart. Sponsorships in Japan have frozen. China's media has labeled it a scandal. We're doing damage control while the two of you treat it like a love letter. Jimin finally spoke, voice quieter but cutting. No one asked me. The room stilled. I'm the one who was stared at, the one who got the you on stage, but no one's asked what it did to me. All eyes turned to him. Even Jungkook looked shaken. Jimin stood, pushing back the chair slowly. You want to protect the group? Then stop speaking like I'm some accessory to Jungkook's story. I have my own. And if you want me to stay quiet, you'll need to ask for it. Formally. Bang PD's jaw twitched. What do you mean? I want a contract, Jimin said. One that protects me, my rights, my name, my version of what happened. Because right now, I'm the one getting buried under assumptions, while everyone acts like I'm some unfeeling statue who didn't get thrown into the spotlight without warning. Jungkook stood. You're not unfeeling. Then why didn't you ask me first? Jimin shot back, pain bleeding into his voice. Why didn't you even check if I could survive it? I thought. You felt, you didn't think. That's always been the problem, Jungkook. The room watched them like spectators in a silent war. No one dared interrupt. I've protected you for years, Jimin said, voice trembling now. When you were drowning in rumors, when you couldn't stop looking at me like the truth was some poison you couldn't swallow, I let it go. I told myself it was better this way, that if the world never knew, at least you'd be safe. He laughed bitterly. Turns out you weren't protecting me, just yourself. Jungkook's face fell. His mouth opened, but no words came. There was nothing to say that wouldn't be another wound. Jimin picked up his coat, slipping it on with quiet defiance. I'll sign the contract, I'll play the part, but once this tour is over, I want out. I'll finish my obligations, but after that, we're done. You're quitting, Jungkook said, stunned. I'm not quitting, Jimin whispered. I'm escaping. The door slammed behind him like a gavel. The silence that followed was heavier than anything. That night, Jungkook walked the city streets with a hoodie pulled low, trying to breathe. Neon signs flickered. Rain glossed the pavement. Strangers brushed past him, their joy and noise a mocking contrast to the chaos in his chest. He ended up in front of Jimin's apartment without realizing it. The same place where everything had once started. The rooftop conversations. The drunken confessions. That one night when neither of them could pretend anymore, and the morning after, when they both agreed to forget. He stared up at the window. It was dark. And then, just as he turned to leave, the door opened behind him. Jimin stood there, barefoot, wrapped in a thin black sweater, his hair messy from sleep or tears. Jungkook couldn't tell. I knew you'd come, Jimin said softly. Jungkook turned, water dripping from his lashes. Why didn't you stop me? Jimin leaned against the doorframe, tired. Because a part of me wanted you to say it, even if it ruined us. Silence. Jungkook took a step closer. Do you still feel it? Jimin closed his eyes. That's the problem, I never stopped. But I'm not sure I want to feel it anymore. Jungkook's breath caught. Then tell me what to do. Jimin opened his eyes, glassy and ancient. Go home, sleep, sing the next song, pretend it's all fine. You really want that? No, Jimin said, voice breaking. But it's the only thing we have left. And he closed the door. Jungkook didn't move for a long time. Just stood in the rain, letting the silence swallow him whole. Above, behind the closed curtains, Jimin slid down to the floor, pressing a fist to his chest. His phone lit up beside him. A new headline. Did Jungkook confess his love to Jimin on stage? Industry shaken by Idol's unscripted act. And beneath it, trending across the world. You by Jungkook. Protect Jimin. Let them love. The world had chosen a side. But Jimin still hadn't chosen himself. Who leaked the footage? The conference room was dead silent. Namjoon's voice wasn't loud, but it cut like a scalpel. His fingers were laced tightly in front of him on the table, knuckles white, jaw tight. The air was thick with dread, the kind that came not from scandal, but from betrayal. Jin stood near the corner, arms crossed, face unreadable. Taehyung leaned back in his seat, one leg jittering violently, barely masking his fury. Hobei didn't even sit. He paced like a tiger in a cage, glancing at the door every few seconds like he expected it to burst open with more bad news. The room was full. Everyone was here. Except Jungkook and Jimin. The leaked video, unedited backstage footage from the night of the lyric change, had dropped at 3:17 a.m., posted anonymously on a burner account, and within 15 minutes it was viral. The audio was clear. Every word, every look, every tremor in Jimin's voice when he asked, "Why didn't you check if I could survive it?" Now the world really knew. The footage had been pulled, but it was too late. It was everywhere. Subtitled, translated, dissected, reposted with sad piano music and fan edits and conspiracy theories. Journalists were demanding statements. Brands were panicking. Fandoms were imploding. And somewhere, beneath all the noise, two people had their entire world ripped open. They're going to bury us, Taehyung muttered, finally breaking the silence. Not just them, all of us. I don't care about the headlines, Namjoon said. I care about trust. This footage came from inside. It was never meant to leave the security drive. So either someone in this room did it, or someone in this company wants us to bleed. Maybe both, Hobei said darkly. Jin finally spoke. They'll ask for a public apology. They'll ask for blood, Taehyung corrected. A heavy knock broke through the tense atmosphere. The door opened. Jungkook stepped in. He looked like hell, eyes bloodshot, hoodie wrinkled, hand wrapped in gauze from punching a mirror hours earlier. He walked with the kind of weight that made the air bend around him. Where, Jimin? Namjoon asked. Jungkook's jaw clenched. He's not coming. Why not? Because he's not sure who to trust anymore, Jungkook said bitterly. And honestly, I get it. Taehyung stood up, anger flashing. So you're just going to let him take the fall for all this? I am the fall, Jungkook shouted. You think I don't know that? You think I don't wake up every hour feeling like I set fire to everything we built? Then why did you do it? Taehyung demanded. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't plan it. Bullshit. I didn't. Jungkook stepped closer, eyes wide, furious. It happened. I looked at him. I sang. The truth came out. You want to punish me for being honest, go ahead. But don't act like I'm the only one who's ever cracked under the pressure. The silence that followed was brutal. Namjoon rubbed his temples. This isn't about honesty. It's about fallout. We're not just people anymore. We're symbols. We don't get to mess up like this. I didn't mess up, Jungkook said, quieter now. I fell in love. And now we're all paying the price, Taehyung muttered, sitting down hard. Jin's phone buzzed. He looked at it, face going pale. They want Jimin to make a statement, he said, denying everything, calling it a moment misinterpreted by fans. Jungkook laughed, sharp, humorless. So they want him to lie. No, Jin said. They want us to tell him to lie. Jungkook turned to Namjoon. You're the leader, you tell me, is that who we are now? Namjoon didn't answer. He stared down at the table, fingers trembling slightly. Then the door opened again. Jimin walked in. Silence snapped across the room like a wire pulled taut. Everyone stood. Jimin looked different, not broken, not angry, but dangerous. Calm in the way only people who had nothing left to lose could be. He walked slowly to the center of the room, set down his phone, let it play. It was a recording. His voice. A single line. I won't lie to save a system that punishes people for loving. The room erupted. Jimin, Jin started, but Jimin raised a hand. I'm not asking for permission, he said coldly. I'm giving notice, that's my statement. I recorded it. I'm posting it in 10 minutes. The world can burn if it wants to. I'm done hiding. Do you know what this will do to you? Namjoon asked, horrified. Yes, Jimin replied, and I'm not afraid anymore. Jungkook stared at him like he was seeing him for the first time. Jimin finally turned to him. I hated you for what you did, he said softly, because it forced me to face something I wasn't ready for, but maybe that's what we needed. Jungkook took a tentative step closer. Then let's do this together. Jimin's eyes searched his. For a terrifying second, Jungkook thought he might say no. Then Jimin nodded. Together. The room fractured, PR screamed, lawyers scrambled, phones rang, but none of it mattered anymore. They were no longer idols wrapped in packaging, no longer puppets of perfection. They were Jungkook and Jimin. Two men who had been told their love was too dangerous for the world. And they had finally stopped listening. Don't post it, Namjoon said, his voice low but trembling with urgency. Jimin, I'm begging you. Jimin looked up from his phone, thumb hovering over the post button like a trigger. Why not? Because once you do, you can't take it back, Namjoon said, stepping forward. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about your family. It's about every kid who looks up to you. It's about the sponsors, the legacy, the group. I am the group, Jimin said. I bled for this name just as much as any of you. And right now, all I'm doing is telling the truth. Why is that the thing that gets punished? Because truth is dangerous, Jin said from the corner, his arms crossed tight. Especially when it doesn't fit the story the world wants. Jimin turned slowly to him. So we let the world write the story, even when it's wrong, even when it costs us everything real. Taehyung exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose. Look, none of us are against you. That's not what this is. But you don't understand what's coming. They'll twist this. They'll turn you two into symbols, into politics, into a war no one wins. I'm already at war, Jimin said. I've been at war since I realized I couldn't even look at Jungkook for too long without someone speculating. Since I had to flinch every time I laughed too hard, touched him too gently, looked at him too fondly on camera. You think this started with that song? No. It started the moment I was told to love quietly, if at all. Jungkook's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Then let them come. Everyone turned to him. He was standing near the door, fists clenched, hoodie damp with sweat. Let them twist it. Let them scream. Let them boycott. I'm not hiding anymore. If they want a villain, I'll be it. Jimin's eyes flicked to him, lips parting in surprise. Namjoon looked between them, the pressure mounting behind his eyes. I've led you all through scandals, military pressure, depression, burnout, loss, but this, his voice cracked. This could end everything. Then let it, Jungkook whispered. Do you know what you're saying? Jungkook stepped into the center of the room. Yeah, I'm saying I've lived more truth in the past 48 hours than I have in 5 years. And I'd rather die on that stage telling the truth than keep living a lie under these lights. Silence gripped the room. No one moved. Jimin swallowed hard. Then, slowly, he turned back to his phone. And hit post. The notification sound was deafening. Within seconds, the world lit up. Park Jimin posts unreleased voice clip on social media. I won't lie to save a system that punishes people for loving. The comments rolled in. Support, hatred, confusion, shock. Jimin trended globally in minutes, so did #Jungkook, so did #Let Them Speak. Backstage staff burst into the hallway, phones in hand, whispering in rapid Korean. Someone from HYB's upper floor yelled from a headset, demanding emergency meetings. Calls from executives lit up every screen in the room. Panic dripped through the walls. But in the center of the storm, Jungkook and Jimin stood still. Taehyung stared at them, mouth parted. "You actually did it." "No," Jimin said, voice soft but steady. "We did." Within hours, a response video from a conservative panelist in Korea went viral, calling their actions irresponsible, provocative, and damaging to national image. A Chinese entertainment agency pulled a brand deal within minutes. A famous talk show host in the US called them brave and beautiful, while fan groups in Brazil launched a campaign to protect them. It wasn't just a ripple. It was a tsunami. The fandom was split. Some were weeping, calling it the most courageous moment in K-pop history. Others were furious, accusing them of destroying the legacy they all built. Petitions to remove them from future schedules circulated. Protests outside the HYB building started. But so did candlelight vigils. So did songs. So did letters, thousands of them, from people who felt seen for the first time. Inside the dorm, the members gathered again. The air was heavy. "Do you still want us in this group?" Jimin asked suddenly, voice tight. "No," Namjoon said. Everyone froze. "I don't want you in the group." Then he looked up, his eyes red. "I want you to lead it." Jungkook blinked. Namjoon stood, walked across the room, and put his hand on Jungkook's shoulder. "What you did, what both of you did, it's the hardest thing anyone in this industry can do. You broke the script. You shattered the illusion. And yeah, maybe the machine will hate you for it." He looked at Jimin. "But you also gave the rest of us something none of us had before. Permission." Jimin's lip trembled. Taehyung stepped forward, pulling them both into a rough hug. "If they come for you, they'll have to come through us first." "Good luck to them," Jin muttered. Outside, chaos reigned. But inside this room, inside this moment, there was something rare, something dangerous, something unbreakable. Truth. And love. Not the kind wrapped in pretty packaging for fans to consume, but the raw, aching kind that burns, heals, and rebuilds in its own fire. And they were finally ready to let it blaze. What the hell were you thinking? The door slammed behind the boardroom as Mr. Choi, the company's international strategy director, hurled a folder across the table, pages fanning out like broken wings. Jungkook didn't flinch. He sat still, palms flat on the cold surface, eyes locked on the man now packing in front of him. "I wasn't thinking," Jungkook replied calmly. "I was feeling." "Oh, wonderful," Mr. Choi snapped. "You were feeling. Do you have any idea how many markets we're losing right now because of your feelings? Sponsorship contracts are being frozen as we speak. Japan just suspended your magazine spread. And China. China was already looking for a reason to cut ties," Jungkook said coldly. "At least now it's for something honest." The room was tense. A wall of executives in suits sat on the other side of the table, their expressions ranging from exhausted to furious. No one looked at Jimin, who sat beside Jungkook, hands clasped tightly in his lap. His face was unreadable, but his fingers trembled slightly. Only Jungkook noticed. The CEO finally spoke, his voice quieter, more dangerous. "We don't care who you love. We care how it's received. The timing, the optics, the chaos. You brought this company to its knees in less than 24 hours. "I didn't bring it to its knees," Jimin said, lifting his eyes. "We exposed that it was already crumbling." "Excuse me," the CEO's tone darkened. "We've all been pretending for years that everything is perfect, that we're invincible, but we're not. We've been killing ourselves to maintain an illusion that's never protected us. Not really. Not when the rumors hit. Not when the stalkers found our homes. Not when mental health broke our brothers down one by one." No one said a word. Jimin's voice dropped. "You only care when it's marketable, not when it's real." "You're idols," Mr. Choi spat, "not martyrs." "Maybe we're both," Jungkook said. And what now? The CEO leaned forward. What do you expect us to do? Rebrand you as a couple? Sell your romance like a K-drama and hope the world eats it up? We don't expect you to do anything, Jimin said. We've already started. The executives exchanged glances. Jungkook reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded packet. He slid it across the table. What is this? The CEO asked warily. A proposal, Jungkook said. A global mental health and identity initiative. Real stories, real faces. Not just celebrities, but fans, young people, LGBTQ voices. Anyone who's been silenced. And you want us to endorse this? No, Jimin said. We want you to decide, endorse it or don't, but we're doing it either way. Under what platform? Our own. The CEO looked at them with new understanding and maybe fear. You're threatening independence. No, Jungkook said. We're taking it. A silence stretched like a noose. Then, quietly, the youngest legal advisor on the left, barely out of university, whispered, They'll follow them. The fans, the world. If they go independent, they'll bring half the industry with them. Mr. Choi's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Jimin finally smiled, just slightly. Are we? The meeting ended in chaos. Phones rang before they even left the building. Legal emails poured in. Journalists camped outside the main gate. Some security staff were given new instructions. If things escalated further, if protests increased, if violence broke out, they were to evacuate the members separately. That night, Jungkook couldn't sleep. The dorm was too quiet, too fragile. Every breath felt like a countdown. He wandered into the kitchen at 3:11 a.m. to find Jimin already there, sitting at the island counter in silence, sipping something from a chipped mug. His eyes were red. He didn't look up when Jungkook entered. You okay? Jungkook asked softly. No, Jimin said, but I'm not falling apart either. Everyone's scared, Jungkook said. Even the Taehyungs. They support us, but they're terrified of what comes next. I'm terrified too. Jungkook moved closer, then sat beside him. But not of us. Jimin turned his head slowly. No, he whispered. Not of you. They sat in silence. Do you remember the first time I said I loved you? Jungkook asked suddenly. Jimin's breath caught. Tokyo, after that stupid hotel fire alarm went off. You were mad because you hadn't packed pants. I was mad because we weren't allowed to sleep in the same room. Jungkook smiled faintly. You told me to shut up. I told you I loved you. I told you it wasn't funny. And I said it wasn't a joke. Jimin looked at him then, fully, with nothing guarded. It never was. They didn't kiss, not yet. There was too much left unsaid, too much noise still waiting beyond the walls. But they sat together until morning. Until the first light filtered through the curtains and the world started turning again, ready to judge them all over. Only this time, they were ready. They were done playing roles. They were done being perfect. And the world, whether it loved or hated them, was finally going to see who they really were. Not just Jungkook and Jimin, but two voices too long silenced, two hearts too long hidden, and two men no longer willing to wait. It started not with a headline, but with a silence. A silence after the fire. A silence after the screams had faded, the interviews had ended, the boardroom doors had closed, and the internet, like all things viral, had moved on to the next scandal. The world had not ended, but it had changed. 1 month after the leak, after the statement, after the chaos, Jungkook stood on stage again. Not in a stadium this time, but a small venue in Seoul, with no pyrotechnics, no LED spectacles. Just a single microphone, a guitar, and him. No backup dancers. No choreography. No script. The room was full, intimate, trembling with anticipation. Fans who had stayed. Fans who had come back. Fans who had once hated, then thought, then forgiven. And new ones, too, those who came because of what he stood for, not just who he was. He adjusted the mic. The lights dimmed. He cleared his throat, and his voice cracked slightly when he spoke. This song was written a long time ago, he said, but I never sang it. Not out loud, not until now. And then he began. The melody was soft, delicate, a little broken in places just like his voice. Halfway through, a second voice joined him. Jimin stepped out from the wings, dressed in black, no makeup, eyes glistening. The room inhaled as one. And then exhaled. Together they sang. Not just about love, but fear. About loss. About choosing to live loudly, even if the world tries to silence you. No metaphors. No coded messages. Just truth. When the final note faded, there was no roar of applause. Just stillness. And then thunder. They bowed. Not just for the audience, but for each other. For the years they pretended. For the walls they had built. For the silence that nearly consumed them. Outside, the world still buzzed. There were still voices, some supportive, some cruel, but it no longer mattered. They had walked through the fire. Together. They weren't trying to win anymore. They were just trying to be free. And now they were. Free to love. Free to sing. Free to exist, without apology, without permission. And in the end, that was the real revolution. Not the headlines. Not the drama. But the quiet courage to be. As the curtain fell, Jimin reached for Jungkook's hand. This time, he didn't let go.